Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your lunch. I would like to take a moment for us to thank the men and women who are serving us today, who are doing such a great job. Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize one of our partners, Southwest Airlines. We consider ourselves fortunate to have such a strong partner in Southwest Airlines, and we thank them for the support of both the Chamber, the city, and the state of Arizona as they continue to demonstrate their commitment to us. So now it's my privilege to introduce Kyla Valencia, who's the Corporate Responsibility Regional Manager for Southwest Airlines, to share some remarks. Please welcome Kyla.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you to the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce for inviting us to be here for this great event. On behalf of more than the 5,000 Southwest Airlines employees based right here in Phoenix, I'd like to express our sincerest thank you to Mayor Gallego and Aviation Director Chad Makovsky, for your continued support of what we stand for here and throughout our network. And to you, our customers and partners, thank you for sharing your love and support for Southwest. It's been a busy first half of the year for us. In February, we celebrated the completion of a major expansion of our technical operations facility. The $100 million project added 90,000 square feet of space, nearly doubling the size of the facility and making this one of the largest complexes in our network. It now gives the ability to work on up to 5 aircraft simultaneously and adds key shops to support the work of our nearly 500 technical operations employees based in Sky Harbor. The LEED Silver certified project also included building larger facilities for our provisioning and group support equipment maintenance teams. These projects can't be completed without strong partnerships throughout the community, so thank you to everyone who had a hand in this project. On the network side, despite working through delays of receiving new aircraft, we've been able to add a few new destinations, including Raleigh-Durham and Memphis. These new nonstop routes continue our mission of connecting you to the people and places important in your lives. In total, we're offering around 200 flights a day to more than 60 destinations across the U.S. and Mexico. While we're an airline, some of our best work is done on the ground and in the communities we serve. Last year, Southwest supported more than 50 organizations with $500,000 worth of tickets and cash so that they could remain focused on their mission of making the community a great place to live, work, and visit. And get this, our Phoenix employees volunteered more than 5,000 hours to support more than 200 causes important to them throughout the Valley. Let's give them a big round of applause. As we embark on another year of serving the Valley, we're so excited about the bright future you have in store to continue making Phoenix a great place to call home and a top destination for people from around the world. Thank you for everything you're doing, and we're so excited to be partners with you in this mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla, and to the Southwest team for all of your support. That 5,000 hours, what an amazing number. And clearly the economic development going on, if you hadn't had a chance, the new hangar at Sky Harbor is world class, and it shows that strong commitment to Arizona, so we want to thank them for that. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for and why we're all here, Mayor Kate Gallego's annual State of the City address. I'd like to take a moment to emphasize just how much we appreciate the mayor's steadfast support of the Phoenix business community and her partnership with the Greater Phoenix Chamber and our partner associations as we continue to work to ensure that Phoenix and our entire state remains a great place to do business. After the mayor's speech, we're going to have a brief Q&A session to dive in a little deeper on some of the big news here in Phoenix, so please remain at your tables after her speech for some exciting announcements. So now please direct your attention towards the screen for a special video as we welcome our mayor. Take it away.
Mayor Kate Gallego and White House Senior Advisor Tom Perez are set to discuss the Inflation Reduction Act. This comes after Gallego has vowed to make Phoenix the most sustainable desert city in the world.
We've seen $17 billion in investment along the rail, and it's just going to grow from here.
Semiconductor production is creating jobs at a rapid pace right now.
It's an industry of the future, and that's why we're betting big on it. The type of technology that's coming to North Phoenix is not available in our country right now.
Travelers can make the trip from Phoenix to Paris, France on a non-stop flight.
Charles de Gaulle Airport, here we come.
You can go all over the world from America's #1 airport.
We are so excited to welcome the World Series back to Phoenix. We feel like we are the sports center of the country.
Starting later this year, Uber and Phoenix are teaming up with Waymo to bring you autonomous ride-hailing and delivery. The future is here, or at least it's in Phoenix.
We are really proud to be an innovative city that welcomes the best and safest technology. We are the first airport in the world where you can take an autonomous vehicle.
We are excited to make history today here in Phoenix. We want to be the most sustainable desert city, and this is a very important step forward. I am dreaming of days where I can take my campaign signs and turn them into my next cell phone case.
We have to be innovative, and that is the Phoenix way.
It is really energizing to see what's possible when a group of people come together with a mission to change the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Before I tell you about the state of our city, I want to thank everyone who made today possible, who make every day possible. First, I want to thank my father, Jim. Dad, you're the best grandpa, mentor to my son, soundboard, and friend. Your unwavering presence and support means so much to me. To City Manager Jeff Barton and every City of Phoenix employee, including the first responders under the leadership of Police Chief Sullivan and Fire Chief Duran, thank you for the work you do every day to make our city the best in the world. To everyone gathered here today and those watching online, thank you. Cities are defined by their people, and Phoenix is leagues above in this category. For decades, those of us in this room and many outside of it have worked to create a local economy worthy of its people and promise, to make Phoenix the place where the future happens. The world's most advanced semiconductors will be manufactured right here in Phoenix. The world's first automated cars have been put to use right here in Phoenix. Amazing medical discoveries are taking place. I can't say it enough. The road to curing cancer will come right through here in Phoenix. What we have created here is unprecedented in American history. The country's largest ever new foreign direct investment is coming to Phoenix. This month, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, TSMC, increased its investment in our community to a total of $65 billion. The economic impact of this project is seismic. It's like hosting the World Series in Phoenix every 2.5 weeks. It didn't happen by accident. I chased this opportunity relentlessly when I first traveled to Taiwan in 2019 to pitch Phoenix as the best place for TSMC. The 2-nanometer chips that TSMC will make here have not yet been mass-produced anywhere on the planet. These chips, for scale, are about 50,000 times smaller than the width of a single human hair. Tiny, tiny chips, big, big investment. Because the Biden administration and Congress got the CHIPS Act done, we've seen unprecedented federal dollars flow into our economy. TSMC will receive $6.6 billion, and Intel's projects, including here in the Valley, will see another $8.5 billion. That's a big win for local jobs and national security. We have one of the strongest CHIPS Act supporters in Congress with us here today, my predecessor and our great Congressman, Greg Stanton. Netherlands-based ASM and ASML, two of the world's most essential semiconductor industry suppliers, are expanding in Phoenix. These investments are being met with world-class training centers, working in concert with our community colleges, giving our students access to jobs of worldwide significance. The companies are so important that the Prime Minister of the Netherlands came to City Hall to discuss our partnership. That's a big deal. As a result of that visit, today I'm delighted to announce that the Dutch government is setting up a permanent trade office in Phoenix, further cementing the Valley as a key player in the future of the international economy. These investments have helped spur the business ecosystem we've longed for, and new players are coming into the region. In Phoenix alone, 25 semiconductor companies have either relocated or expanded since the first TSMC announcement. That means something huge to all of us who live here. Jobs, jobs, jobs. TSMC alone is creating 25,000 construction and manufacturing jobs. Good jobs that change lives. Just last month, I met a Navajo woman named Kira. She signed up as a member of the Ironworkers Union, got the right training, and told me she made $8,000 in her first 3 weeks building a semiconductor fab. It's a life-changing career path. I met several Navajo Union members with the same story. Their parents and grandparents worked in the coal mines or at the coal power plant, and remarkably, today the next generation is using their skills on the front lines of the CHIPS revolution. Getting the right training is essential to everyone's success. These are jobs with a level of sophistication and precision unlike anything we've ever seen. That's why, at the City of Phoenix, we created the first of its kind registered apprenticeship program that will support a diverse range of workers who want to succeed in advanced manufacturing. Many pitched in to get this program off the ground, including the Arizona Community Foundation with a multi-million-dollar philanthropic fund. The program is already attracting young people such as Ray, Callan, and Ryan. Ray Barrera was born and raised in Phoenix, received an associate's degree from Phoenix College, and previously worked in fiberglass. He applied to TSMC after hearing about the opportunity online, and now he leads a team of 20 technicians. Callan Yazzie previously did contract work in carpentry. His offer letter to join TSMC as an apprentice was in his mailbox when he woke up on the morning of his birthday. Not only is Callan thriving and gaining new skills in the program, he's an ambassador for the industry, telling his friends and family all about semiconductors and what they do. Ryan Zanes completed 2 apprenticeship programs early in his career, and today he manages all of the mentors who have dedicated one-on-one relationships with the apprentices. Ray, Callan, and Ryan are living proof of just how beneficial these major investments are to our community, providing new opportunities that didn't exist a few short years ago. I'm excited that Ray, Callan, and Ryan are here with us. Would you please stand so we can recognize you? Just as we are working at breakneck pace to lay the foundation for an expansive semiconductor workforce, we're working with urgency to ensure that those living in Phoenix have access to top-notch medical care. When my mom was diagnosed with cancer many years ago, our family was told she'd have to travel to Houston to receive the best care. That bothered me to my core, and I vowed to change it. I want all Phoenix families to get the care they need right here at home. And let me be clear, that includes reproductive health care. Last year, when Phoenix voters approved the general obligation bond, they made a $12 million investment to partner with ASU to build a new medical school downtown. It took a lot of work to get that bond passed, and it's not an exaggeration to say it will benefit Phoenix for generations. Thank you to the impressive co-chair of that campaign, Councilwoman Keisha Hodge-Washington. ASU Health will join with a network of medical excellence, which includes the University of Arizona and Creighton University. We are so fortunate to have Creighton's president, Father Daniel Hendrickson, with us here today. We will fuel advancement in medicine alongside other institutions, such as the University of Arizona's Center for Advanced Molecular and Immunological Therapies, Barrow, TGen, and all of our amazing hospital partners. In Phoenix, the City Council and I paved the way for the next chapter of bioscience. In North Phoenix, advancing the Mayo's expansion on the Discovery Oasis campus. This biotech corridor will continue to grow the presence of first-in-class research and healthcare. So much of our progress at that site is because of the steadfast commitment of Councilman Jim Waring. Our dynamic economy and the promise of our future is making Phoenix even more of a destination. It's one of the reasons Sky Harbor is busier than ever. Since I took office, international passenger numbers have jumped 20%. We have 22 more international flights departing every week than we did 5 years ago, including our recent addition of Tijuana on American Airlines. We now serve 146 air markets, the largest number of nonstop destinations Phoenix has ever had. And in 1 month from today, you'll be able to hop on a nonstop direct flight to Paris. As of today, the Phoenix Airport System's economic impact is $44 billion, an increase of nearly 15% compared to 2016. Part of that impact is made thanks to partners such as Southwest Airlines, which opened one of the largest hangars in its network at Sky Harbor a few months ago. Gorgeous. I love our airport and the local options we have, and I'm not the only one. Last year, the Wall Street Journal named Sky Harbor the very best airport in the country. I want to thank our entire airport team, from Aviation Director Chad Makowski to our navigators and our business partners, for making that designation possible. That high mark is one I'm committed to keep, and we're going to continue to invest in Sky Harbor to make it even better. Through the federal bipartisan infrastructure law alone, our airport is set to receive more than $250 million for upgrades. If you walked through Terminals 3 and 4 recently, there's no doubt you've noticed how much busier they are than in past years. Soon, we will need a new terminal to accommodate our future growth, and I'm proud to share that next month, the City Council and I will get to work on a cutting-edge terminal at Sky Harbor's west end. It will be beautiful, with net zero greenhouse gas emissions and equipped with a new customs facility that will help us welcome even more people from all over the world. A top-tier terminal makes sense for a city that's a leader in worldwide aviation. Air taxis will make their Olympic debut at the Paris Olympics this summer, many utilizing systems made by Honeywell Aerospace right here in Phoenix. Pablo Air, a leader in delivering emergency supplies to remote locations using unmanned aerial vehicles, chose Phoenix for its North American headquarters. Later this year, Phoenix will become the first large city in the world to have Amazon Prime Air. If you live in parts of West Phoenix, you will be able to opt in to have a drone deliver your Amazon package. We're leading the way on our roads and rail as well. Thanks to Waymo, we're the largest autonomous vehicle zone in the world. And I want to celebrate that the Global Operations Center for Cruise is located right here in the Valley. Whether a cruise car is in Tempe, Tokyo, or Dubai, the navigation of the autonomous vehicle will be managed by an operator in our region. Just a few months ago, we extended the light rail north to Metro Center. It seamlessly passes over the I-17 with the system's first elevated bridge, an incredible engineering achievement. Thanks to Valley Metro and the great project team, this extension was completed on time and on budget. Next summer, we'll celebrate the opening of the South Central Extension that will connect communities along Central Avenue from downtown to Baseline with reliable, convenient transit access. Infrastructure is essential. In so many ways, it's the foundation of our local economy. Leaders before us knew that, and voters did too. By passing Proposition 300 and then Proposition 400, Maricopa County voters leveraged a half-cent sales tax into the infrastructure we see today throughout the region, Loops 101, 202, and the 303. Proposition 400 has brought improvements to hundreds of miles of roads, helped us expand valley-wide bus service, and made the light rail system possible. The funding source that supports us moving people and moving goods expires at the end of next year. Reaching a deal with the state legislature on how to renew it wasn't easy, but the agreement to extend the revenue stream does a lot of good. It adds hundreds of miles of freeways that our growing region needs, gives us the resources to make the I-17 safer, and continues to make meaningful investments in public transit. That bipartisan agreement, the renewal of this essential investment, is on the ballot in November. It's called Proposition 479, and there may be nothing more important to our local economy than getting this decision right. There are so many who made this possible, including a coalition of city, town, and tribal leaders who worked overtime to deliver. One of the most indispensable leaders is with us here today, the Executive Director of the Maricopa Association of Governments, Ed Zerker. And we're joined by 5 elected officials who helped develop the regional plan: Mesa Mayor John Giles, Buckeye Mayor Eric Osborne, Chandler Mayor Kevin Hartke, El Mirage Mayor Alexis Hermosillo, and County Chairman Jack Sellers. We also The state legislature and the County Board of Supervisors moved it forward, and Governor Katie Hobbs signed it. We have an important road ahead of us, so let's get this done. All of these investments, the future of our economy, our own livelihood, wouldn't be possible without our most precious resource, water. We know the tough news. The West is facing an unprecedented drought, and we're keeping a close eye on the Colorado River as we navigate ongoing negotiations about potential cuts that affect all of us in Arizona. Last year, I'm sure you saw the flurry of headlines. Major news outlets declared that Phoenix was running out of water following the state's announcement about groundwater deficits in pockets of Maricopa County. One local opinion columnist even said, "If you move to Arizona, you will die of thirst." Like Michael Jordan said, I took that personally. Let me be clear, Phoenix is not running out of water. We're conserving better than ever, and we're working to create a new supply. Last year, I told you about my plan to build a multi-billion-dollar, state-of-the-art advanced water treatment facility that will recycle 60 million gallons a day. Since then, we've added plans to upgrade the Cave Creek water treatment plant, equipping it with the same purifying technology. Advanced water purification is essential for sustaining our economy and our quality of life. For decades now, Phoenix has approached water policy with the long-term view in sharp focus, and I'm proud that this City Council continues that tradition. We unanimously passed our Sustainable Desert Development Policy last year. Just a few weeks ago, we passed an ordinance for conservation requirements on new industrial projects, estimated to use more than 250,000 gallons per day. This collaborative approach will allow the experts in our Water Services Department to work with local businesses to find conservation solutions. There are inspiring examples of responsible water stewardship across the business community, and together we will continue to deliver new strategies to secure our water supply. Phoenicians care about our environment and want to be part of the solution. We're working to make it easier than ever to do so. We've rolled out all new rebate programs, incentivizing businesses and HOAs to remove decorative grass that guzzles water. Residents can also access funds for better irrigation technology and more efficient appliances. Sustainability in the desert also requires intentional strategies to make our city more resilient in the long run. As we approach important milestones on the pathway to clean energy economy by 2050, we're lucky to have historic federal support through President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. Just yesterday, we learned that Arizona will receive a $156 million Solar for All grant to install panels on homes across the state. In September, Phoenix also received a significant award to accelerate our city's tree planting efforts. It's safe to say there's something in this law for all of us, and the impacts will be transformational. This month alone, we planted more than 300 trees at schools that needed them the most through our Canopy for Kids grant. By year end, that number will increase to over 1,000. Iceland, who led the pledge for us today, is one of thousands of students who are benefiting from this investment. I think she might be mayor one day. Councilwoman Laura Pastor's office joined us for tree planting at Iceland School in the Isaac School District. And as a longtime educator with a big heart for Phoenix kids, I know this program is especially meaningful to her. Thank you, Laura. We're working to build a more equitable Phoenix. And my vision for a more equitable Phoenix is one in which all residents are safe, secure, and supported. A Phoenix in which residents will feel confident that dialing 911 will result in swift attention and resolution. A Phoenix in which police officers can safely do their jobs and return home to their families after every shift. I deeply appreciate our police officers, and I'm grateful to each and every one of them who take great risks every day to keep our city safe. As mayor, I set out to make improvements that enable our officers to focus on their core job functions. For example, it frustrated me how many times police officers were sent to a scene where someone was experiencing a mental health crisis but hadn't committed a crime. In instances like this, a behavioral health specialist or a social worker is much more appropriate. 5 years ago, we began to pilot alternative responses to 911 calls with a focus on mental health. Today, we have a full-fledged Community Assistance Program, or CAP, operating throughout the city 7 days a week. We continue to partner with Solari, the Crisis Response Network, to make sure we're providing the correct care on each call. So far, we've diverted nearly 8,000 calls for service through Solari and CAP. The CAP model is changing lives and saving lives. This approach helped house a family who formerly lived in a park, connected a young man dealing with isolation to supportive resources, and even helped an elderly man repair his broken air conditioning and rescue his dogs. Our efforts are serving as a model to other law enforcement departments across the globe. I'm proud that Phoenix was recently the only large city featured in BBC's People Fixing the World podcast about innovative ways communities can provide behavioral health services for those who call 911. It's working so well that we continue to grow the program. Voters approved millions of dollars in bond funding that will expand the program at 3 Phoenix fire stations. We also recently celebrated the opening of our police department's Real-Time Operations Center, an effort supported by Councilwoman Betty Guardado. From license plate readers to specialized cameras to gunshot detection technology, this facility is already making the 27th Avenue corridor safer and improving the quality of life for residents. Policing in today's world is increasingly complicated. The overwhelming majority of time, our officers get it right. But sometimes we do get it wrong. When we do, there must be transparency and accountability. On top of that, we must learn and train officers so we don't repeat our mistakes. 5 years ago, when I assumed this office, I hit the ground running to bring new transparency mechanisms to our Phoenix Police Department, improving the experience not just for our constituents, but for our agency. Today, every single uniformed frontline Phoenix police officer is equipped with a body-worn camera. Body-worn cameras have provided another window into the split-second decisions our officers have to make on duty, ultimately guiding critical decisions on accountability, policy, and training. I also recognize that good police work doesn't happen in a vacuum. The more we involve our residents in our operations, the better bridges we'll build, and the deeper trust we'll have between our neighborhoods and law enforcement. That's why the City Council and I created a unique office that provides civilian review of law enforcement. That team released its first 2 monitoring reports earlier this year, and though the reports were far from glamorous, their recommendations demonstrate the value of additional engagement in our department's work. Soon, the Council and I will vote to add an extra layer of oversight with a Civilian Review Board, a group of appointed residents who will provide important community perspectives. Together, I know that these new accountability tools will help us reinforce our department's track record of excellent service to Phoenix. I am especially thankful to have a passionate change agent alongside me to lead with a people-first approach to public safety. Can we get a round of applause for Councilman Kevin Robinson? As we continue to make strides on many fronts, we have a duty to ensure Phoenix remains a place where anyone willing to work hard and contribute can get ahead. Affordability, especially when it comes to housing, is a more significant challenge than ever. Wall Street investors have scooped up thousands of single-family homes in our region. Others have gone into the short-term rental market. And as the supply dries up, prices jump up. I want to make sure Phoenix is doing its part. Through the Housing Phoenix Plan, we are nearly 80% to our goal of creating or preserving 50,000 homes by 2030. The City Council and I made it easier for homeowners to build accessory dwelling units or backyard guest houses to increase the housing supply and give Phoenix families the opportunity to live multi-generationally. We are making it easier for developers to grow supply. We're updating the city code, adding staff, and improving technology to cut red tape and reduce approval times. For example, instead of waiting on the City Council, city staff can now review plats more quickly, in turn accelerating the building of affordable housing in Phoenix. To folks who might be listening and thinking zoning policies are the bane of the affordable housing shortage, I'm here to tell you that in my city, they are not. The Phoenix City Council zones more multifamily housing units than any other city in Arizona. We approve hundreds of future homes, ranging from market rate to affordable housing, at nearly every council meeting. As market forces trend toward more dense building, we are seeing a nearly 30% increase in multifamily permits. Now more than ever, we need partners across all levels of government, industry, and community organizations to come to the table on solutions to the affordable housing challenge. We must do the right thing by our neighbors and friends who are struggling to find housing options they can afford. A lack of affordable housing options also contributes to the challenge of solving our homelessness crisis. This is a tragic reality for communities like ours across the country, one complicated by substance use and a real gap in mental health availability. As the crisis has grown, so too have our efforts to combat it. The Phoenix's City Office of Homeless Solutions, which didn't exist when I became mayor, now has 36 full-time team members. Many of our dedicated outreach staff have experienced homelessness themselves, giving them a unique insight and a leg up on helping others to transition out of homelessness. Phoenix is also leading the way on shelter. In the last 3 years alone, we've come to represent nearly 83% of all beds in Maricopa County. That is a staggering number, and more communities in the Valley must step up to meet this moment. Getting a person into temporary shelter makes the path to permanent housing much easier, and the one approach for everyone strategy doesn't work. It's one of the reasons why we continue to develop wide-ranging solutions that make sense for individual circumstances, whether it's a shelter bed, a shelter that accepts pets, or private quarters in a converted shipping container. The shipping container solution, pioneered by local company Steel and Spark, is a marvel and even won the top prize for urban design at South by Southwest last month. We owe a special duty to the most vulnerable among us, especially during summer. The Department of Public Health reported 645 heat deaths in Maricopa County last year, a human tragedy in our own backyard. As we prepare for what could be another tough summer, it's time to shift our thinking. We have to prepare for extreme heat the way other communities do for hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. We know that tragedy can happen. The good news is we have great partners and leaders who are willing to do something about it. Our newest member of the City Council, Carlos Galindo Elvira, is already stepping up to make sure we do our best to care for our most vulnerable residents, and I'm grateful for that, Carlos. It will take an all-hands-on-deck approach. Last fall, I called on the city staff across departments, heat, homeless solutions, emergency management, and public health, to apply lessons from last year and work together to craft a comprehensive plan for 2024. That means planning for a new reality of persistent, harsh summer temperatures. This year, we will open overnight cooling centers, extend respite hours in public facilities, and coordinate both volunteer and emergency personnel outreach efforts. No person should die in the summer because an air conditioning went out or because they are unsheltered. Phoenix is also a city that believes everyone deserves a fair chance to make positive changes in their lives. Our new Phoenix Community Court breaks the cycle of involvement in the criminal justice system. Rather than face charges for minor offenses, community court participants can receive the resources they need to take matters into their own hands, get back on the right track, and ultimately end their homelessness. I'm grateful that our Public Safety Committee chairwoman led on delivering this creative and compassionate program. Thank you, Councilwoman Ann O'Brien. Since the program launched in January, nearly 100 residents have already received support. One woman entered the program unhoused, estranged from her family, and battling addiction. The great team at Community Bridges worked with her to obtain all of her identification documents, and she completed 2 outpatient substance abuse programs. As a result, she regained her Section 8 housing voucher and landed a job interview. I'm happy to say that because of her positive changes, she is now reunited with her family and on a path to independence. Another resident was referred to our program after he was cited for trespassing because he was sleeping in his car. A hardworking navigator helped him find shelter and services that made it possible for him to keep his job. Now, he's matched with a shared housing roommate and will secure his own apartment soon. Our community court is opening doors for people who were locked out for too long. It's making a real difference, and we are just getting started. I've told you all before that I believe Phoenix is a uniquely welcoming city, one that celebrates diversity and meets people where they are. Year after year, Phoenix has achieved a 100% score on the Human Rights Campaign's Equality Index for our LGBTQ+ inclusivity. I'm proud that Phoenix has a strong reputation for accessibility too, thanks to the efforts of many who have championed improvements to the way we build and the way we operate. But I think there's more we can do to make Phoenix a city that truly works for everyone, from parents pushing strollers to Phoenicians who depend on mobility aids. Over the last few years, the city has been performing a comprehensive analysis of our public buildings to ensure they meet the latest ADA standards. This is an important effort, but I think our unique brand of innovation can take us to the next level. I'm proud to announce the development of an ambitious plan to make Phoenix the most accessible city in the world. We are assembling a team of talented advocates who will help us identify priorities and chart the path forward. There is no better person to spearhead this plan than Phoenix Vice Mayor Deborah Stark. Deb, thank you for leading this worthy effort. I hope that by now you agree that when I say Phoenix has arrived, that we are the it kid. We have a tireless drive to keep getting better. Decades ago, naysayers from all around the country doubted what could be possible here. Today, the world is looking to Phoenix as a city of the future where possibility is found in every corner. A Washington Post opinion columnist recently called Phoenix a rising star city, a city on the receiving end of more capital and more talent than ever before. The Wall Street Journal told the country, opportunity has a new address, Phoenix. We are reaping the benefits from years of intentional planning, attention to the right issues, and a steadfast belief in our limitless potential. Phoenix is more prosperous, healthy, and happy than we were decades ago. The state of our city is strong. If we continue to leverage our strengths and harness our ingenuity, I know we can rise to the challenges we face. We must and we will continue to rise for the sake of pursuing an even better future for us all. Thank you for allowing me to lead this incredible city, my beloved home. The future is bright in Phoenix, and Phoenix is the future. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Todd. Thank you to the entire Phoenix Chamber team for putting on a great event. A huge shout out to the Sheraton team who did everything from Passover kosher to serving us in very crowded conditions. And thank you to my team in the mayor's office and the City Hall team for all the great work to get us here today. It's a real team effort, and I want to recognize those who do the hard work.
Well, and Mayor, thank you. That was a great speech. I got to tell you, I'm pumped up for what's ahead, and just appreciate you taking a few minutes after your speech to have a brief Q&A. I always like to start with my favorite subject, so I'm gonna go to your son, Michael. First grade?
First grade.
All right, what's happening with him?
So very into science. His favorite place in Phoenix is the Arizona Science Center.
All right, okay.
If you haven't checked out the ocean exhibit, Michael very much endorses that. Still interested in dinosaurs. Because now there's a first grade class project. So when we're done here, my tonight may involve some of that. He picked dinosaurs, particularly the Heterodontosaurus, which I had not heard of.
Is that real?
It does not look real. So it has quills on it. And so I thought we owned every plastic dinosaur known to man, but we do not own the Heterodontosaurus. And the teacher was like, you could make it out of Legos. But like, how do you make, I don't know, quills out of Legos?
All right.
You can't even buy one on anywhere I can find. So that will be the weekend, just trying to figure out how to do a Heterodontosaurus. I'm in real trouble with this little guy. He's a lot smarter than his mom already.
Well, the Lego thing doesn't go away. I'll ask my kid, who's 20, and still builds those things, if we can find one for you. Okay, moving on. First grade's big. Let's move on in terms of fun things that are happening. We recently joined forces with Visit Phoenix and the Restaurant Association on sort of a tasty new contest. Tell us a little bit about that.
We have a great partnership with Visit Phoenix and the Restaurant Association to try to get a city cocktail. So New York has the Manhattan. We hope to have the Spirit of Phoenix. It's been an incredible year for our bars and for our restaurants. James Beard just did really important recognition last week. We've had bars make so many top 50 lists. But I don't know that we're known yet as a great food and beverage city, so we are trying to change that. We took nominations from all across the city. The state of Arizona wanted to submit the tequila shot to be the city cocktail.
Okay. All right.
I am not a judge, so do not worry. Because we had 72 submissions and no one wants me trying 72 cocktails.
That'd be a big day.
The Bartenders Guild judged, and so we got down to the Sweet 16 at the beginning of March Madness, and then during Final Four, launched the Final Four. And so no pressure to everyone here, but you must pick the Spirit of Phoenix cocktail. So we have phxcocktail.com, and you can go to a variety of different great bars, from Merc Bar to Little Rituals. Try them and help us vote. They really celebrate our amazing local ingredients. So there's one with prickly pear and chiltepine, which is our Arizona native pepper. So it's a chance for us to talk about our great local ingredients and really promote what is happening here. And this is the last week to vote, so we really need your help.
So you just gave us a really hard homework assignment. I guess we'll have to just do the best we can.
Yep, last year I told you all you had to take a nonstop flight out of Sky Harbor, so this year help us with the city cocktail.
That's
There's
right.
a lot of pressure attending this event.
Absolutely. So, obviously we've been watching, you mentioned Prop 479, and you can't travel our freeway up north without seeing TSMC. And we're so thankful for that. We recently, CHIPS Act announcement, everything that's going on. I'd like maybe for you to take us back to 2019. Take us in the room a little bit with what was happening as you try to work that deal to bring them here.
Absolutely. It's so exciting that we now have the country's largest new foreign direct investment. For me, it started with a real interest in diversifying our economy. Do not take real estate advice from me. I bought my first home in the single month peak of 2008 market, so it didn't build any equity for a single month. And it was a real lesson how our economy needed to have more diversity, more different industries, so that one, like real estate, goes down, others will be more stable. I was working at the time at Salt River Project and had a very small role related to Intel. And in the area around Chandler, they didn't have the same dips as my condo did. So have long time been interested in advanced manufacturing. It was my first trip as mayor. We got a 30-minute meeting with TSMC. This was before everything was online. And the only time we could do it was over my birthday weekend, which wouldn't have been my first choice. But we went out. It was my first time on a bullet train, so I felt like a little bit like a low-tech, I don't know, country mouse goes to the big city, where they're making the most advanced semiconductors. And to add to that, the site we were pitching was called Biscuit Flats, right next to Ben Avery shooting range. So I was wondering if we sounded like a little too Wild West. What kind of
what
impression?
What could go wrong?
Right, yes. I was just worried they'd be picturing tumbleweeds and not advanced semiconductor chips. The 30-minute meeting turned into 2 hours. GPEC went with me, and Christine Mackey, our great economic development director.
It's amazing. A lot of Chris Mackey fans.
We got a great opportunity to brag about our educational partners. They really wanted to know, could we do training for what would be first in the USA type technology? So to the folks at ASU and the Maricopa Community Colleges, thank you for doing such a good job so that we could brag about you. And they really pushed on power and water, so I was glad to have worked at SRP and had that background. It's a weird background for a mayor, but every once in a while, it's the right background. So it was a long due diligence process, and really every level of government, from the White House to the ACA to Deer Valley School Board, worked on it. It ended up being a great trip, and they got me a birthday cake with extra frosting because they heard Americans really like sugar.
And dinosaurs.
So the cakes at the table today looked like they had maybe a little extra frosting. So, so thanks to so many people in this room, we were able to get this life-changing investment for our city.
Well, it was a huge investment, and I will say from my perspective watching this, a testament to and the need for serious policymakers on both sides of the aisle that are interested in moving our country forward. And so congratulations. It's a big deal, and it's having an impact on not only Arizona, the whole country. Mm-hmm. So you obviously, that wasn't enough. You decided you needed to do more. You went back to Asia recently to recruit some new companies into Phoenix. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we're really trying to take advantage of the moment. I mentioned in the speech, 25 semiconductor companies have located here or expanded. We got to meet with some companies that have made big investments. You and I have joked, now you get a $100 million investment and it doesn't always make the news anymore because so much is happening here. But we were able to meet with several companies that then made big investments here. We're also working very hard on new nonstop air service. So we met with airlines in 3 different countries, trying to push in that area. We are trying to deepen the relationship with Taiwan. So the picture you see on the screen is an electric vehicle company that Councilman O'Brien and I visited. They bought what was a sheet metal manufacturing facility that had shuttered in her district. They used to make gambling machines. This company hired all the people from that company who had wanted to come back, and now they're making electric vehicle charging infrastructure and some other manufacturing machines right here in Phoenix. So it was really incredible. If you want to go to the next picture, it shows my peer in Tokyo. Tokyo is so big they don't have a mayor, they have a governor. So she and I are part of a global mayors organization around sustainability, and we were there on the hottest day of the summer in Tokyo. She is doing a lot of work around solar energy and wants to work with us and some of the great architects in the room with some really gorgeous new panel technology that she thinks should debut in Phoenix, which makes sense. We have more solar than any other city installed on our city property. And then she's standing in front of a Sushi Tech Tokyo, which is her effort to help Tokyo-based companies, particularly in clean tech, come into the US. And she's very excited about some of the partnerships with our universities. She's also very efficient. We had a 15-minute meeting, and she was done. It was a master class in a good meeting. She used to be Secretary of Defense for Japan, and she does not mess around.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Well, you mentioned sustainability. Can you give us an overview of some exciting new projects regarding sustainability. I saw you celebrated 2 interesting projects recently.
And I think there might be one more slide on Asia, which explains something on your tables. So United Food Internationals is one of the most important manufacturers of Asian cuisine. They are huge leaders in soy sauce and tempura. And on your tables, there's a bottle of salad dressing that's making its debut right now, and a neat sesame dressing. So we got to meet with United Foods while they were in Tokyo, and they're bringing now to Phoenix a great line of dressings. So we will be even more of a capital of great food. I know there's a lot of fans, myself included, of Japanese cuisine, and their team is here with us. So Doc and Take are right here.
Excellent.
It's good to have friends who are food scientists.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who don't fight over them, take them home. Really good stuff. So back to the sustainability. Want to brief us on what's happening? I think there's 2 projects you announced recently.
Absolutely. And today's event is working very hard to be sustainable. So the food that we didn't eat will go to people who will enjoy it, and what cannot go to people will be composted. So we're really trying to make this State of the City event a green event. We are very focused on food at the City of Phoenix. So the next picture shows Project Reduce, which is a wonderful effort from Team Phoenix to help our local restaurants reduce food waste. We started with Grand Avenue and Roosevelt Row, and the restaurants got funding and support, as well as an expert chef to come in and help them. The next picture shows a delicious pastry that was made with vegetables that would have been, I guess it's more of a taquito, that would have been thrown away. Testal, which is one of my favorite Mexican restaurants, has this delicious hibiscus tea. They used to take the hibiscus flowers and throw them away, and now they put them in some of their dishes, and it just adds some extra flavor, so helping Phoenix be greener and more delicious. We also have a wonderful partnership in the next picture with Arizona State University, Goodwill, and Hustle Phoenix. We are building a first-of-its-kind microfactory around plastics. So we have a goal in the city to divert 90% of our waste in a very short time frame, and we had to step it up. So ASU is helping us turn plastics into small pellets, and they can be turned into great products. You see some here, and the next picture shows a skateboard that you can make out of things like, we just had an amazing Final Four. The team, DPI, Visit Phoenix, all hit it out of well, I guess hit it out of the park is the wrong metaphor. Had a slam dunk on that event. And we're gonna take things like those plastic signs and turn them into cool products in Phoenix. We think this is a model that could make sense, not just in the United States, but all over the world. So we hope to export sustainability. And then we're building a great new resource innovation campus along the Rio Salado. Very excited about that, trying to create cool business opportunities for our companies. And we're excited to share, we're gonna be able to do 1 megawatt of solar to power our recycling in the city of Phoenix. So really good news on the sustainability front. Yesterday was Earth Day, so happy Earth Day.
Absolutely. And once we get out of the dinosaur stage, we might get into skateboards, so you never know. I know moms probably don't want to hear that, but it's coming.
We do love bike riding right now, which I can keep up on a bike ride on a skateboard. No one wants to see the mayor on a skateboard. Todd wants to see the mayor on a skateboard.
I think it'd be kind of cool. Okay, so final question. The Olympics is going to be hosted by that little suburb of Phoenix called Los Angeles, just 4 years from now. How are you planning to use that as a pathway to showcase us here in Phoenix, Mayor?
So we have done such a great job with mega sport events. We've celebrated Super Bowl, Final Four. We're going into WNBA All-Star. We do it so well. So today I'm excited to announce a committee to take advantage of the fact that we are going to have the Olympics in our region. They're going to be sports that are coming back, like baseball and softball, new sports like cricket and flag football. We have great facilities, great athletes. So Ron Price with Visit Phoenix has agreed to co-chair a committee to help us get as many Olympic-related events, including qualifying in Phoenix and just take advantage as well of athletes that might be training. We are also partnering with my great friend, the Flagstaff mayor, around training opportunities. I'm afraid they can offer high altitude, cool weather training that I haven't figured that one out yet in Phoenix. But between the two of us, we really think we can offer a great suite of opportunities. It'll be a chance to celebrate the amazing Olympians who live in the Valley, as well as get some international attention for our city and get to see some of the best world-class athletes. So look forward to that, and if anyone is interested or has an ability to help us, we would very much be interested in that.
All right, you heard it here first. Well, Mayor, I want to thank you for not only for being here today, but for everything you're doing on behalf of our community, business community included. It's really special for us to have such a strong and dynamic mayor here in Phoenix. I also want to thank your team. Our team and your team worked for tirelessly to make sure that every detail was thought of, and I want to thank you publicly for that. And also want to once again thank our sponsors for making sure that we were able to put on this important event, and all of you for being here. We are grateful to you, and we hope that you have a great day. Drive safe, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you.